Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be ranking all the eyeshadow palettes that I tried in 2021. I absolutely love watching other people's videos in which they've done this, so I thought I would do my own as well. The things that I'm going to be looking out for when ranking them are how much I've reached for them throughout the year, colour story, so how much do the colours in the palette actually appeal to me, and also of course quality. I have 15 palettes in total to rank, and for me I think that's quite a lot. I'm just a regular beauty consumer, I guess, so yeah, 15 palettes. Let's start the ranking. Alright, so in 15th place we have the Colourpop Cosmetics Lil Ray of Sunshine palette. Now this is a 9-pan all matte palette which has, as the name suggests, sunflower hues in the colours. So really nice warm yellow toned colours and yellow toned browns. So I've put this palette in last place because although the colour scheme is nice and I think the packaging and everything else about it is nice, it's not really one that I reach for often. All matte palettes aren't really my kind of thing very much. I'm very much someone that enjoys a lot of shimmer, a lot of sparkle, intense metallics. I will rarely, if ever, go for an all matte eye look. So an all matte eyeshadow palette like this doesn't really appeal to me as much as an eyeshadow palette that's got mattes and shimmers. Of course you can always reach into other palettes to use in combination with the matte palettes, which I do, but it's not my sort of absolute cup of tea, I guess. But I did purchase this palette because I liked the colour scheme, and quality wise it is quite nice. I will say these mattes are the most sort of powdery, kick-uppy mattes that I've ever tried from Colourpop, but the shades are nicely pigmented and they do blend out nicely, so I do like it. The colour scheme is nice, the quality is pretty decent, but yeah, the all matte vibe just isn't really my kind of thing, so that's why this palette is in 15th place. Alright, next up in 14th place we have the I Heart Revolution Cinnamon palette. This is one of their chocolate bar palettes. This is what the palette looks like, and it does actually smell quite strongly of cinnamon as well. Not my favourite scent. This palette is also another all matte palette, which, as I'm sure you can guess, is why it's down in 14th place as well. No exciting shimmers to use. I think the colour scheme of this palette is quite pleasant. It has a nice range of cool and warm tones, neutrals, but also some pops of colour as well, like these yellows, these pinky sort of fiery red orange shades as well. I do like this palette. I think the quality is quite nice and there are some interesting shades in here. The mattes are pretty pigmented and they blend out really nicely. I usually quite like I Heart Revolution's formula in their chocolate palettes anyway. Again, not really my absolute favourite colour scheme, not the absolute best quality, and the fact that it's all mattes has put it down in 14th place for me. Right, number 13 goes to another Colourpop palette, and this time it's a little ditty 4-pan called Mocktail. This is a cute little warm-toned neutral quad. You've got two really sort of warm rusty browns which are nice, a beautiful gold, and a sort of peachy pinky gold duochrome shade with some sparkles in there which are nice. The quality is pretty nice. I've made some nice looks with it. I do like the colour scheme, but I think the fact that there's nothing particularly special about it, there's nothing super impressive about the formula, is probably why it's ranked a bit lower. Also, rather annoyingly, I don't know if you'll be able to tell in this gold pan over here, but I've actually pressed this shade back in because when it arrived it was very, very loose and there were little flecks around, and I think I sort of accidentally lightly jolted it and then it just sort of went everywhere, so I had to really try and smush it back in. So I think that initial impression of when this shade first arrived, all messy and very loose out of the pan, probably already left a bit of a bad initial impression. This small quad I purchased to be a, you know, a nice portable small palette to use for traveling, but the reality is I haven't taken this anywhere with me because this shade is so delicate and so loosely packed that if you just lightly jolt it, it goes everywhere, and I don't want to deal with that mess. So I haven't taken this with me anywhere, and I haven't used it as much because I want to avoid getting this messy shade everywhere. I think Colourpop has better formulas in other palettes, so that is why this little quad is 13th place. Next up, number 12, is yet another Colourpop palette, and this time it's the Colourpop Baby Got Peach palette, which is one of their 9-pan monochromatic ones. This has got a really aesthetically pleasing colour scheme to me. I love the peachy tones. There is a pressed glitter, which is this one over here, Hungry Ghost. Very beautiful. I don't actually mind pressed glitters very much at all. I like to use them every now and again to spice up the look. But yeah, so this is a really nice sort of peachy neutral palette, I'd say. The reason why this palette is ranking a little bit lower down in 12th place is because, again, I don't feel like the quality is that outstanding compared to some of the other monochromatic 9-pans that I've tried from Colourpop. It's nice, it's pleasant, the shades all work well, there's nothing wrong with them, the mattes are nice, the shimmers are nice, but I guess I wanted a little bit more from the palette. You are obviously going to get quite soft toned looks with this, and that's perfectly understandable and fine. You can tell that from the colour scheme, they're quite light to mid-toned mattes. That's fine. I think where it sort of lets me down a bit are the shimmers. So they're nice, but they're sort of a little bit lacking for what I want. I know Colourpop can do some really nice in-your-face metallics that are way more impactful, but these are just sort of very sort of soft all around. Out of the 3 shimmers, this one, Ready or Yacht, is probably the most impactful. It's the one that I use as an inner corner highlight. It's nice, it's smooth, but it doesn't really have that wow factor. It's not as intense as the formulas in the eyeshadow palettes that are further up the list. So you do get nice looks with this. I have appreciated the looks I've gotten with it, but every time I use it, I'm sort of left wanting a bit more, not entirely satisfied with it. So yeah, that's why it's a bit lower down. Right, number 11 is another Colourpop palette. I'm sorry, I know. It's the Colourpop and Sailor Moon collaboration. I believe it's called the Pretty Guardian palette. So this palette I was so excited for because I absolutely love Sailor Moon. I used to watch it all the time in my childhood. I had Sailor Moon knickers, I had a Sailor Moon backpack. I was a Sailor Moon fan. So I was really excited when they released a collaboration that sort of appealed nostalgically to me. And I must say, I think the packaging is really cool. The way that this shifts to 2 different faces of Sailor Moon is really cool. I think they've done a fantabulous job with the packaging. So this is what it looks like inside. Again, super pretty. I love all the holographic details to it. Very nice. And I also really enjoy the colour scheme of this. I think it's really pretty, it's soft, but then you've also got these vibrant tones at the bottom, so it's still fun at the same time. There's also a pressed glitter in this palette, which is this one here. Again, I like pressed glitters, so I quite like that. And then I think there's 1 or 2 Super Shock shadows in here. This one is definitely a Super Shock shadow. So yeah, I really do enjoy the colour scheme of this. I think this is perfect for really soft, pretty spring looks in particular I love. But it is ranking a bit lower in the list because, again, I don't think it's the best formula that Colourpop has to offer. The colourful mattes perform pretty nicely. They're not super pigmented, but definitely buildable, and they do blend out really nicely as well. Here again, what sort of lets me down are the shimmers. They're just not very impactful, especially the Super Shock shadow here, Silver Millennium. Silver Crystal's a bit better. Full Moon, not as impactful. Luna is a really gorgeous purple, very beautiful shimmer, but again, it's more of a soft shimmer rather than an intense metallic. All in all, it's a nice palette, but I was expecting more from it, especially since I love Sailor Moon and I was really excited by it. I have made some nice looks with it, I do enjoy using it, but again, like the Baby Cop Peach, I'm left sort of wanting a bit more. So because it's not really my favourite formula, I haven't reached for this palette as much as the other palettes higher up in the ranking. That's why it's stuck in 11th place. Moving on to the top 10 now. So in 10th place we have another I Heart Revolution palette, and this is the Caramel Nudes palette. Again, it's one of their chocolate bar ones, and this one also has a pretty intense scent. It smells rather strongly of sort of sweet caramel, which isn't really my favourite. I don't love very sweet scents. I sort of prefer my eyeshadows to be not scented at all. So this one has a really lovely warm caramel brown sort of colour story, very nice. As soon as I saw this, it really made me think of autumn. This is a palette that I've really enjoyed using this year. It's got the nice I Heart Revolution formula that they have in their chocolate bar palettes. Mattes are pigmented and they blend nicely. They also build well on top of each other, and the shimmers are nice and impactful. The shimmers are a thicker formula than some of the others that I'm mentioning in this ranking, but they still perform really well on the eyes. They're smooth and give a wonderful reflective shine on the eyes, which is exactly what I want. This shade, Caramelize, is one of my favourite shimmers in the palette. It's so lovely for autumn. Overall, just a lovely, yummy colour scheme and performs well. This palette is just a little lower down on the list because there are other palettes that I enjoy more. Moving on to 9th place, I actually have a glitter palette. This is the Remand Better Than palette in 00 Light and Glitter Garden. So this is what the palette looks like inside. You get 10 gorgeous glitters with varying tones, a lot of sort of pinky, rosy tones, as well as light sort of champagne-y ones as well. And what I also really enjoy about this is that the glitters are all very different texturally. So some of the glitters will be chunkier and have a different larger particle shape, and some others will be much finer, sort of like a more traditional glitter, I suppose. So I really like that you get different textures in this, because I've realised in 2021 that textures are quite important to me in eyeshadow, so I really like a textured, impactful, shimmery or glittery finish. So this palette just really provides that. So I never thought that I would rank a glitter palette as highly or use a glitter palette as much as I have with this one. So what I really use this for is as an accent palette. So whenever I feel like I want to spice up my look a little bit, add a bit more extra glitter or impact, I'll just go in and dab some of this maybe in the center or on the lower middle of the eye with my finger. It's really simple to use. It adds just that lovely dazzle to your looks, and the formula of this is really quite nice as well. So all the glitters are suspended in a I guess like a gel, so I find that I don't have to use a separate glitter glue or adhesive on the eyes to get them to stay. I just go in with it as it is naturally and pat it on, and it adheres really well. I don't get any fallout throughout the day. These glitters are truly gorgeous. A lot of them have holographic particles in them. They bring so much joy to me when I'm using them and also looking at them in the pan. So yeah, this one is in 9th place. Alright, in number 8 on the list we have my final Colourpop palette, and that is the Child palette, which is a collaboration with Star Wars The Mandalorian, which I have watched and I really enjoyed the show, and of course the child is adorable. I think the packaging of this palette is really nice. It's super cute. Colourpop does a fantastic job on the packaging and aesthetics of all their collaborations, and this one is no exception. So I did purchase this palette mainly for the packaging, but I do think that the colour scheme is really interesting as well. You've got these muted, sort of khaki, swampy green tones, which I I guess are supposed to reflect the colour palette of the child. And then you've also got some neutrals over here as well. These sort of more muted, sort of desaturated greens aren't really the ones that I like the most. I prefer more vibrant greens. But that being said, I do think that these are really interesting tones that I don't have anywhere else in my collection, so I'm glad to have them, and they do perform really well. The formula in this palette I think is one of Colourpop's best that I've tried. The shimmers are so impactful. They are just so reflective on the lid, ultra metallic, very, very gorgeous. Also the mattes are really nice as well. So overall I really enjoyed this palette this year. I've made some really pretty looks with it and I was very impressed with the quality of it. As I said, I think it's one of Colourpop's best. The only reason why it's not a bit higher up is just because the colour scheme isn't really my perfect type of green that I like to go for. So that's why it's not at the top, but I still think it's a fantastic palette, and definitely if you were interested in trying it, I would strongly recommend. In 7th place is the Charlotte Tilbury Luxury Palette of Pearls in Celestial Pearl. This is one of the 2 holiday palettes that she released for Christmas in 2021, and the packaging is so beautiful. It sort of looks like mother of pearl on the outside, so it's really iridescent and cool. So this is actually the first Charlotte Tilbury palette that I bought, so my first experience with her formula. From looking at the colour scheme initially, I thought I would enjoy it and they looked like colours that I would use, but I wasn't expecting to be as sort of impressed or blown away with them as I was when I tried them. So you've got 4 shimmers, each with different textures, which I really like. This one down here, this sort of bronzy brown, is the least shimmery of the 4, more sort of a satin, which I actually kind of like because being the deepest shade that this palette has to offer, having this one be the least reflective offers a bit more depth when you're making looks with it, so I like that. Then this one over here is a very glittery sheer topper, which I really like. Very piecey and sparkly. You just go in with your finger, dab it in the center of the lid, and it looks like you've got twinkling stars on your eyelids. So very, very pretty. I really like the texture that this one brings. This one over here in the corner is a gorgeous duochrome. It shifts from pinky peach to a lime-toned gold. So it's a gold with a hint of green in it. So this duochrome is really beautiful. It shows up very well on the eyelids. This one over here is a pink metallic. Very pretty, but again, not the PC textured kind of shimmer that this bottom one is. So I really enjoy the range of textures that you have in this palette, and I have particularly enjoyed using this palette for really simple 1 or 2 shadow looks over the lid. So yeah, that's why this palette is in number 7. Alright, and then ahead of it in number 6 is the Corinco Shabam Shabam eyeshadow bar palette in number 2, Shy Night. This is a cute little 6-pan palette from a K-beauty brand, and it's got these really cute stars on the front, which I like, and the see-through acrylic packaging. So I'd never actually tried anything from Corinco before, but I did see that this brand had, and particularly this palette had, good reviews on YesStyle, so I decided to purchase it. I do actually have a YesStyle code which you can use to get a discount, and I will mention that in my description box below. I love the colour scheme of this, but also the quality is really quite nice. So the mattes themselves are the typical sort of K-beauty style formula, where it's more on the softer side. These are buildable to an extent, especially this brown. You can build it up to get quite a bit of depth, but they're not sort of intensely pigmented, not like some, I guess, Western brands are, but the shimmers are really where it's at. So these shimmers are just really sparkly, and again, there's a range of textures which I really like. I've used it quite a lot this year, especially for traveling because of its small compact size. So yeah, I just really enjoy this palette. Moving on to the top 5 next, and number 5 goes to the BH Cosmetics Lost in Los Angeles palette. So this is one of their palettes in their travel series. I also have the Trendy in Tokyo one, which is the rainbow palette. This 16 pan palette has loads of really gorgeous pastels, as well as some interesting jewel tones as well. The shimmer shades are also of superb quality. Definitely some of the best shimmer formulas that I've tried. BH Cosmetics, I think, have one of the best eyeshadow formulas on the market in my opinion, and they're definitely one of my favourite eyeshadow formulas. So the shimmers are intensely metallic, high impact, pretty opaque base, and they're just very reflective on the eyes. They also have wonderful sparkles all throughout the shimmer, so you just get this really intense finish of metallic but also sparkly. I'm actually wearing this palette on my eyes today. Hopefully you can see how intense the pastel shades are, but also how reflective the shimmer shades are. Just super gorgeous. Overall, I think this palette is superb quality, as with a lot of BH Cosmetics palettes. The colour scheme I find to be so inspiring, and I've created a lot of fun looks with it throughout the year. Thoroughly enjoy this, and that's why it's in the 5th place for me. Okay, moving on to number 4, I have the Colourpop Cosmetics Blue Moon palette. When I mentioned earlier that the Child palette was my last Colourpop palette on the list, I was lying. This is in fact my last Colourpop palette on the list. I can't believe I forgot about this one when it's my favourite one. But yes, this is the Blue Moon palette. Very cute packaging on the front. It is one of their monochromatic 9 pans, like the peach one earlier. But unlike the peach one, I like this one so much more. This one is full of gorgeous blue tones. I just think that the colour story of this is very inspiring. So I really like the variety of blue tones that you get within this palette, and there's also a lot of variation in terms of depth, so you can go very light with just these shades, or you can go very deep by adding in some of these tones as well, which again, love the versatility, something that you really want in a small compact palette like this. The quality is also superb. Along with the Child palette, this Colourpop palette is one of the best that I've experienced from the brand. I would say apart from this one, the Pastel Blue Moonlight, all of the other shades are very pigmented, and I mean, I'll excuse that one because it's a pastel blue. So Moonlight, you do have to build up a bit to get it going, but it's very easy to do so and lay as well. The other shades are very pigmented, especially these 2 deeper ones, and they also blend out really easily as well. So sort of everything you want in a matte shadow. The shimmers are also so beautiful. Overall, love the palette. I think the colour scheme is so inspiring, and the quality is really good, and I would really recommend if you're looking to add some blue tones to your collection. Alrighty, moving on to the top 3 palettes in the ranking, and in 3rd place we have the Huda Beauty Medium Nude Obsessions palette. It is a gorgeous 9-pan eyeshadow palette full of neutrals, particularly pink toned neutrals. Pinky toned browns, pinky toned shimmers. This is actually the first high-end eyeshadow palette that I ever bought. I think I bought it midway through the year, maybe sometime in June or July. So I've used this palette quite a lot this year. It's one of my most reached for palettes. So I was really pleased with the quality of this palette, as well as the nice colour scheme. So the mattes are really, really nice. The mattes appear so smooth on the eyes, really easy to blend, just super easy formula to work with, so I really was impressed by the mattes. The shimmers are also really lovely, great metallics, nice and reflective, but they also have some fine sparkles throughout them. If I were to perhaps nitpick or have to say something negative about this palette, it would be that it smells bad. Even from when I first bought it, it arrived with a smell that sort of resembled that of a stable or like hay. I don't know if it's supposed to smell like that, but it hasn't impacted the performance of the shadows and it hasn't irritated my eyes at all. So I just sort of, push through that and use it anyway because I really enjoy it. But yeah, I just thought that was something to note. Love this little 9 pan, so good for quick easy looks, great quality, and I really enjoy the shades. Alrighty then, moving on to the final top 2 palettes in the ranking. Number 2 is the Pat McGrath Mothership 5 Bronze Seduction palette. Here she is in her lovely carton packaging. It opens out like a double door with the palette inside. This is actually the first luxury palette that I ever bought in my collection, and also the most expensive palette in my collection. This is what she looks like inside. Really gorgeous array of neutral tones, but also some standout duochromes and this gorgeous red over here. So I settled on this Mothership palette out of all the others because at the time this was the one that most appealed to me. I was very excited to try these out after hearing about how everyone raves about Pat McGrath's eyeshadow formula, and I must say I do agree. I really enjoy the quality of this. It is really fantastic and I don't regret purchasing this at all. So the mattes are really interesting in that they don't really have much kick up at all really when you dip your brush in. Despite that, you get a lot of pigment on the brush, so you really don't need a lot of product at all, just a light dip. The pigment, however, is very easy to blend out, so these shades are really easy to work with and I really enjoy using Pat McGrath's matte formula. The metallics are very nice, very smooth, love working with those. And then we've got the lovely Astral Blitz shades over here. I believe Pat McGrath has 2 sort of formulas of Astral Blitz shades. These are special shades. So one type is the ultra reflective, very glittery, sparkle heavy type finish, and the other is slightly more like the normal, well I say normal, but slightly more like a normal metallic, which is still intense and reflective but doesn't have that intense sparkle finish. So the red one is the latter, less sparkly, and I think you'll be able to see that in the pan, but still an intense, smooth, lovely metallic. And then the Astral Blitz shades are just, how do I describe them? They are my glittery fantasies come true in a metallic shade. You only need a small amount and you just pat it over your eye and it gives you the most celestial, out of this world, intense sparkle. It looks like you've got like 1 billion stars in a galaxy just gleaming from your lids. That's the kind of finish these shadows give you. Just stunning. This palette really is a standout to me for this year and also in my collection for the superb quality and range of textures that you get within this palette. I've really enjoyed using it and that's why it is my number 2. Alright, are you ready for the number 1 palette of this year in my eyeshadow palette ranking? It is of course the Kaleidos and Angelica Nyqvist collab palette, the Club Nebula. Just take a minute to really appreciate this gorgeous packaging, so beautiful. Kaleidos have just become one of my favourite brands of this year and ever since I tried their makeup. Love their entire aesthetic as a brand. They always outdo it with the packaging, really gorgeous. But also with the quality of their makeup as well. So this is what the Club Nebula palette looks like inside. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a collaboration with a YouTuber, Angelica Nyqvist, and I love watching her channel. I actually have a full in-depth review of this palette on my channel. I will link it above. Alright, so I absolutely love the colour scheme. It is Angelica through and through. She of course curated all the colours in here and the layout. I didn't initially think that it would be that up my street because these aren't the sorts of tones that I wear that often, but they are very gorgeous and very unique. I don't think I've seen another palette like this before, certainly not this colour scheme, and I don't have these kinds of tones in my collection, so I was very appreciative to have this. I also really love the sci-fi theme behind this palette and the names. Anjelika loves sci-fi and watching sci-fi shows, and so do I. Moving on to the quality, Kaleidos's eyeshadow quality is just chef's kiss. It is wonderful, and even more so in this palette. These mattes are some of the most pigmented mattes that I've ever tried. Like, out of all of the palettes I own and all of the eyeshadow brands that I've tried, these mattes are incredible. Only need a slight amount and you get so much pigment. It's just wonderful if you are a colour lover and lover of intense looks. As well as being really pigmented, they're also very blendable, very easy to work with. I would say the only shadow that's maybe not quite as blendable as the rest is Gravity, which is this sort of intense limey chartreuse colour, but you know, that's fine, it's just one shade. The rest of them are impeccable. Then the shimmers, they are just so beautiful. Exactly the kinds of shimmers that I love. This palette is full of duochromes and multichromes. I love iridescent shifty shadows, so this palette really has my heart on that aspect. The finish of these shadows is very topper-like, so they aren't very opaquely pigmented in their base. They are on the sheerer side, but they are so sparkly. They give you that cosmic glimmering look, very dazzly, and I absolutely love them. This palette is truly outstanding, and that is why it is my #1 palette for this year. And that is it. That is all 15 palettes that I tried this year ranked. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know down below what some of your favourite palettes have been that you tried this year. I would really, really love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like. If you didn't, don't. And I will see you in my next video. Please subscribe if you'd also like to see me then. Bye.